The palace of Queen Zaylara stood like a mountain of silver and black stone, rising high above the alien capital. It was a fortress of power, guarded by tall spires and armored soldiers who never left their posts. For centuries, her family had ruled the Zareth Empire with strength and fear. The queen was known across the stars as fierce, commanding, and untouchable. She was not only a ruler, but a warrior who had fought on the battlefield with her own claws, earning the loyalty of her people. But this morning, her world was about to break. Inside the grand nursery, where two small royal beds once glowed under soft light, silence stretched like a wound. The beds were empty. The princesses, the twin daughters of the queen, were gone. Servants trembled as they searched the chamber again and again, pulling aside curtains, looking under furniture, even scanning the air for strange energy trails. There was nothing. The queen entered with heavy steps. Her tall figure cast a shadow long enough to make the servants drop to their knees. Her eyes, bright and sharp like burning crystals, locked on the empty beds. For the first time in years, fear, not battle, not politics, not rivals, rose inside her chest. "Where are my daughters?" Her voice thundered, shaking the crystal walls. No one answered. No one dared. The captain of her guard knelt low, his armor rattling. "We have searched the wing, my queen." No door was forced open. No guard saw anyone enter. It is as if they simply vanished. The queen's tail lashed against the floor, a sound like a whip cracking. Vanished? Children do not vanish. Someone has taken them. Someone will pay. Soldiers spread across the palace, then the city, then the skies above. Drones scanned the streets. Scouts rushed into tunnels. The queen's rage was like a storm, driving her entire empire into panic. Rumors whispered through the capital. Rebels, assassins, enemy spies. Every rival was suspected, every outsider watched, and then came a clue. One of the trackers returned with a confused look. He bowed deeply before speaking. "My queen, we found traces of a foreign scent in the nursery. It is not of our kind. It is faint, but there is no mistake." The queen narrowed her eyes. "Whose scent?" The soldier hesitated. "Human." The word hissed across the chamber like poison. Humans were few in the empire, scattered and weak. They were tolerated as workers, engineers, or traders, but they were never trusted. To think that a human could steal from her was beyond insult. "Find them," she commanded, her voice sharper than any blade. "Search every colony, every station, every settlement. I will not rest until my daughters are returned." Far from the noise of the palace, in a quiet human outpost built on the edge of a dusty plain, Daniel Harper stirred awake. His small room smelled faintly of metal and old coffee. He blinked at the ceiling, trying to shake off the heavy pull of sleep. Something warm pressed against his chest, heavier than a blanket. He looked down. Two small alien children were curled up against him, their soft, scaled skin glowing faintly in the dark. Their little eyes were closed, their breathing slow and peaceful. They looked nothing like humans, yet in that moment they seemed no different from children everywhere. Fragile, innocent, and seeking comfort. Daniel froze, his mind racing. Who were they? Where had they come from? He had locked the doors last night. His outpost was far from the city. Nothing made sense. One of them stirred, clutching his shirt tighter as if afraid he might vanish. The other made a small sound, almost like a kitten's purr, and buried her face against his chest. His heart twisted. They were scared. They had run here on their own somehow, across the plains, away from whatever world had frightened them. And now, by some strange chance, they had found him. "Easy there," Daniel whispered softly, though he knew they might not understand his words. "You're safe." He reached slowly for a blanket and pulled it over them. Their tiny bodies relaxed, their breathing steady again. But Daniel knew the truth would soon reach him. Royal children did not wander freely. If they were who he thought they were, then the Empire would turn the planet upside down to find them. He should call it in. He should report to the patrols. That was the sensible thing, the safe thing. If the Queen discovered he had hidden them, his life would not be worth a grain of sand. And yet, he couldn't do it. They were only children. Whatever had driven them to escape, whatever fear had pushed them into the cold night, they had chosen him. Not the palace guards, not the soldiers, not the drones. Him. Daniel sat back slowly, careful not to wake them, and stared at the ceiling again. His heart beat hard against his ribs. He had been many things in his life. A builder, a mechanic, a survivor. But protector of alien princesses? That was never in the plan. And yet, as their small hands clung to his shirt, he made a quiet decision. He would not give them up. Not yet. Not until he knew why they had run, and not until he was sure they would be safe. Outside, the alien patrol ships streaked across the sky, their engines humming like thunder. Inside, in a humble room of metal walls and flickering lights, two royal daughters slept soundly on a human's chest, unaware that their disappearance had shaken an empire, and that their protector was about to stand against forces far greater than he had ever imagined. The story of how one human would change the fate of a queen's heart had just begun. The royal palace of the Zareth Empire grew darker with every passing hour. The once proud Queen Zalara no longer sat still on her shining throne. She paced like a restless beast, her claws clicking against the polished floor, her eyes burning with fury. Every scout, every guard, every servant trembled in her presence, for they knew that when the queen's daughters were missing, no corner of the empire could feel safe. Reports kept arriving. Each one brought no answer, only frustration. Her daughters had not been found in the markets, nor in the tunnels, nor in the skies above the capital. Yet the trace of the human scent in the nursery remained undeniable. For the queen, this was not only a loss, it was an insult. She began to imagine enemies whispering behind her back, rivals mocking her weakness. The thought tore at her pride. Still, deep beneath her anger there was fear. She would not speak it aloud, but it lingered in her heart. Fear that her enemies might already have harmed her children, fear that she had been too harsh a mother to be loved, fear that she might never hold them again. Meanwhile, far from the palace, Daniel Harper faced his own storm. Inside his quiet outpost, the twin alien princesses clung to him as if he were a shield against the galaxy. He had given them food, just simple bread and fruit from his supplies, and though they ate awkwardly, they smiled for the first time. Their eyes, bright and curious, seemed to trust him. Daniel sat with them on the floor, trying to understand their broken words. They spoke in a mixture of their language and scattered human words they had picked up. Slowly the pieces came together. Palace, cage, one whispered, pressing her small hand against her chest. No, free, the other nodded. Cold, guards. Walls, no laugh, no warm. Daniel listened in silence. He had known that royal life was strict, but he had never imagined the daughters of the most powerful queen in the galaxy would feel trapped in their own home. They had run not from kidnappers, but from loneliness. They had run to find something they did not even know the word for: comfort. He told them simple human stories. He showed them how to toss a small ball he kept near his desk, and they laughed when it rolled away. He taught them how to draw circles on scraps of paper with a broken pen. Their laughter filled the room, breaking the heavy silence that had lived there for years. And yet Daniel's heart grew heavy. He knew that every patrol ship flying overhead was searching for these children. If he were caught, he would be accused of treason or worse. A single human standing against the Queen's wrath? It was madness. That night, as the children slept once more against his chest, Daniel stayed awake. He stared at the ceiling and argued with himself. I should return them. I should signal the patrols. I can't keep them safe forever. But another thought pushed back. If I give them up, they will return to the cold cage they ran from. They will never laugh again. And I will have betrayed the trust they gave me. He sighed, covering his face with his hands. For years he had lived quietly, avoiding conflict, fixing machines, surviving on the edge of the empire. Now, by chance or fate, two small aliens had chosen him as their protector. He could not turn his back on them. In the capital, the search widened. Patrols spread into human settlements. Every human worker was questioned. Some were dragged away, accused of hiding the children. Fear ran through the human communities, for they knew that suspicion from the Queen was deadly. At Daniel's outpost, the sound of approaching engines made him tense. He quickly dimmed the lights and hid the children in a storage compartment. Their frightened eyes looked up at him, and he placed a finger over his lips. Quiet, stay here. Don't move, he whispered. The door burst open. Two alien soldiers entered, tall and armored, their glowing eyes sweeping across the small room. Human, one barked. We are searching for the Queen's daughters. Have you seen them? Daniel kept his voice calm. I've heard the rumors, but no, I haven't seen anyone here. Just me, same as always. The soldier stepped closer, scanning the room with a device. Daniel's heart pounded. The children pressed their small bodies deeper into the shadows of the storage space. For a moment, Daniel feared the device would pick up their faint life signs. But then the soldier turned it off with a grunt. Nothing here. Just another useless human. They left as quickly as they had come. Daniel waited until the sound of engines faded before opening the storage door. The children rushed out and clung to him tightly, shaking with fear. He hugged them close. "It's all right. They're gone. You're safe for now." But Daniel knew the net was closing. The Queen herself would not stop until her daughters were returned. And when she found out a human had sheltered them, her fury would be beyond measure. Still, Daniel could not bring himself to abandon them. The twins looked at him not with fear but with hope. They called him Safe Human, their voices soft and trusting. And in that moment, Daniel felt something stir inside him, something stronger than fear. He had lived his life as a survivor, a worker, a man who kept his head down. But now, for the first time, he felt like something more. He felt like a protector. In the palace, Queen Zalara stood alone on a high balcony, gazing over her empire. The stars stretched endless above her, but none of them mattered. All her riches, all her power, all her victories, what good were they if her daughters were gone? She clenched her fists, whispering into the night, "I will find you. No force in the galaxy will stop me." And yet, miles away, the two children slept peacefully in the arms of a human who had no throne, no army, no power, only warmth, only kindness. The Empire searched with weapons and threats, but it was in Daniel's small outpost where the lost princesses had finally found what they had been seeking all along. And in his heart, Daniel knew the truth. When the Queen arrived, when the Empire demanded, he would stand between them and the children. He was only human, but sometimes being human was enough. The next dawn arrived heavy and tense. The sky above the plains shimmered with the constant hum of patrol ships. Daniel Harper stood near the window of his small outpost, staring at the distant horizon where black specks moved closer. He had known this moment would come. He had known the Queen herself would not rest until she had her daughters back. Behind him, the twin princesses still slept, curled together under a blanket. Their small bodies rose and fell with soft breaths, their faces peaceful in the dim light. Daniel felt a sharp ache in his chest. He had grown attached to them in a way he never expected. They were not just children he had sheltered. They had become part of him, little lives that depended on his strength. The ground shook as ships landed nearby. The air filled with the sound of boots, weapons, and sharp commands. Daniel turned and whispered, "Stay here. No matter what happens, don't be afraid." He stepped outside before the soldiers could storm in. A squad of alien guards formed a line in front of his outpost. Their armor gleamed, their eyes glowed like fire, and their weapons pointed directly at him. Daniel lifted his hands slowly. He had no gun, no armor, no army, only his courage. The leader of the squad barked, "Human! Step aside. We know what you have done. You cannot hide royal blood from the Queen." Daniel's jaw tightened. "They came to me. I didn't steal them. They were afraid. They needed safety, and I gave it to them." The soldiers hissed at his boldness. They moved forward, but then a ripple of silence swept across the plain. A massive ship descended, larger than anything Daniel had ever seen. It landed with a roar, kicking up dust and shaking the ground. From its opening ramp, Queen Zalara herself emerged. She was taller than any soldier, her crown rising like sharp wings, her cloak trailing behind her like fire. Her presence pressed down on everyone like a storm. Even her guards lowered their heads in awe. Her eyes locked on Daniel, filled with rage, suspicion, and a hunger for answers. "Human," she said, her voice echoing across the field. "Where are my daughters?" Daniel's heart hammered, but he did not step back. "Inside, they are safe. But if you take them back only to lock them in walls again, then they will not be safe. Not truly." Gasps rose from the soldiers. No one had ever spoken to the Queen in such a way. Her claws twitched as if she might strike him down where he stood. But before she could move, the door behind him creaked open. The twins rushed out, their small feet kicking up dust as they ran. They threw themselves at Daniel, clutching his arms and chest, hiding against him as if he were their shield. Their voices rang out, full of desperation. "No! Stay with Safe Human. Don't take us back. Please." The Queen froze. For the first time in her life, she felt powerless. She had fought armies, silenced rebellions, conquered worlds, but she had never faced her own children turning from her embrace. Their cries pierced her heart deeper than any blade ever could. Her soldiers stood silent, unsure of what to do. None dared move without her command. Daniel looked at the queen, his voice steady though his knees shook. You have power, wealth, armies. But these children didn't want any of that. They wanted warmth. They wanted to laugh. They wanted someone who held them, not as heirs or symbols, but simply as children. The words cut through the queen's pride. She opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came. Her daughters clung tighter to Daniel, their little faces wet with tears. For a long moment, the battlefield was not between empires, but between a mother's pride and a human's simple truth. Finally, Zalara's shoulders lowered. She stepped forward slowly, her voice softer now. They are mine. They carry my blood, yet they cling to you as if you are their father. Why? Daniel shook his head. Not father. Just human. I gave them what I could. I gave them what they were missing. That is all. The queen stared at him, then at her daughters. Her pride resisted, but her heart cracked. She had ruled through fear her entire life, believing that strength alone could protect what she loved. But here in front of her, her greatest treasures chose not power, not wealth, but warmth from the weakest being in the empire. Her hand trembled as she reached out. One of the girls peeked from Daniel's chest and looked at her mother. The queen's fierce eyes softened, wet with rare tears. My daughters, she whispered, her voice breaking. I did not know. I thought keeping you behind walls would protect you. But I see now. I was wrong. The twins looked at Daniel, then at their mother. Slowly they reached for her hand, but they did not let go of him. They held both at once, bridging two worlds. The queen's chest ached with a feeling she had long buried, humility. She looked at Daniel again, and for the first time in her life she bowed her head even slightly. You are human, she said, her voice low but clear. Yet you have given my children what I could not. For this I owe you more than words. Her soldiers stared in shock. Never had they seen their queen lower her pride before anyone, let alone a human. Daniel only nodded. Keep them safe. Not with cages, but with love. That is all they ask. Zalara closed her eyes, then opened them with resolve. She turned to her court and declared, This human is no enemy. He is protector of the royal blood. From this day his name will be honored. The announcement spread like fire across the empire. The tale of the fierce queen who bowed to a human became a legend, repeated in markets, ships, and even enemy courts. But for Daniel, the legend did not matter. What mattered was the way the twins smiled again, their small hands holding both their mother's strength and his simple warmth. For once there was no fear in their eyes, and for Queen Zalara there was a revelation she would never forget, that sometimes the smallest acts of humanity could humble the greatest throne in the galaxy.